go. Let's see. All right, let's see.
Okay.
There. Oh, what if I did this?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So,
Okay.
hi, everybody. And Sarah and I are going to talk. I'm Henry. We're going to kind of try to dig around and figure out what this very common now word woke actually means, and why I hate to use the word conservatives because I don't think that they really are conservative, but why the right or conservatives, Republicans, whatever, ridicule it and hate it and so on. One of the things that occurs to me is that woke is a very close cousin to quote unquote political correctness.
Uh-oh. What happened? Uh-oh. So sorry.
That's all right. We can start again, right?
No, we're not going to. There, we're still going. Sorry.
Okay. So we lost a picture for a little bit there.
All right.
was saying, I don't know if I'm repeating myself, but woke is a pretty close cousin of political correctness. And I wanted to ask you, Sarah, when you think about woke, what comes to mind?
Well, and of course, I've been using it as a play on words for like a year and a half, and I created this podcast as Woke Donkeys. And for me, woke means that you're aware, and I guess I interpreted it as being aware of social justice. So from that point, I guess I just think it means that you're aware of social issues and social injustice and previous problems within our history that created an environment where we didn't always treat people like our Constitution said we would.
Right.
So.
And I'm trying not to be law professorly here, but I find it interesting. It's a term I use a lot, social justice. But what is from your point of view, your perspective, what is the difference between justice, just as a word, and social justice? What turns a case of justice into a case of, quote, social justice or social injustice?
Wow.
And I'm not pretending I have the answer because I don't think I do. It's a term I throw around a lot. But
okay, so let me make sure I get the question right. Is what is I don't even know if I guess I am. I can't hear myself in these, so I'm going to turn these off and not even bother with them.
Okay.
Okay. Social justice is, in my mind, social justice is if we treated all people as though they mattered and their civil rights mattered, and they were able to get health care and food and housing and not be lacking those things because of any economic or political situation that has been created by our politicians. Justice is it's a much more stringent word in terms of justice for people that have had a crime committed against them. Like, for instance, the women that have been abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal of idiots. They have not received justice for the treatment and behavior that was inflicted on them.
Right.
And so justice is when you use law and order rules to create a situation where a person's being a victim will come to an end.
Okay.
That's what I think.
I want to throw out, and there will be people maybe that see this that are familiar with the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who lived from 1724 to 1804.
Okay.
And Kant is wrong about a lot of things. He's wrong about lying when he says, well, if the murderer comes to your house and demands to know where he's hiding, and he's hiding in your house, you have to tell him the truth, even if it means that the guy's going to be murdered. I don't agree with that, but Kant had this fundamental concept which underpins, like, the American Psychological Association Code of Ethics. They don't cite to it. Social Workers Code of Ethics, even to some extent, which is my background, the legal code of ethics. And that notion is respect for persons, not as means to some further end, but as a worthwhile end in themselves. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we're facing today is that, I will never forget the time when the now president knocked the handicapped reporter and started imitating him and so on and so forth. Right. It was absolutely
it was cruel. Horrendous. And I was convinced that he was done for then, but I was wrong.
Every time you think he's done for. The point I want to make about that, by the way, and we'll come back to Kant, is that there was and I can't remember his name now. It may come back to me. But I want to say 17th, maybe early 18th century French philosopher. What was his name? You can look this, you can Google it. The saying I've thought of forever and ever since we've had the current administration is cowardice is the mother of cruelty. Cowardice is the mother of cruelty, which suggests that cruel people, almost by definition, are also cowards. And when you think of Trump surrounded by all his security detail and the adoring crowd and so on, attacking this one kind of defenseless reporter, that was cruel in my view. And we seem to be becoming crueler as a culture. I mean, I don't know if you agree.
I think that they are. It seems like they're winning, but they're really not. They're really not winning. I don't think the argument, and I think that the law, the justices, and the federal courts, and even state courts, and lawyers that worked for the Department of Justice are quitting rather than putting up with this nonsense.
Well, but
anymore.
That is sad. I was talking.
Well, of course it is. But
talking to my friend Bob this morning, when you take the FBI, it's the same thing. The State Department, years and years and years of expertise is being
it'll come
lost.
Back. It'll come back. But what I'm trying to say is that I forgot.
That's okay.
Don't do that to me.
I forget.
Okay. I just feel like Donald Trump is cruel, and he is the cruelty is the point. But I don't think, like in Europe, and I say this because it's kind of back to Epstein, because that's like everywhere right now. They are facing consequences for their behavior or their interactions with Jeffrey Epstein, especially after 2008, when he'd already spent a year in kind of daycare prison. And so all these people that interacted with him and that helped promote him as this great thinker and, putting together people and making connections and all of that, they're all paying the price for that in Europe. We're not paying it here, but we will. And we may lose a huge amount of people out of our Congress, and a huge amount of people, in state government and elsewhere and other things, and rightly so. So you either have to have a sense of what justice is and sense of what is right and wrong. And I just don't think that what Jeffrey Epstein stood for is anything that I want to be related to. I mean, it's just disgusting. You don't molest children. Right. All right. Get back to woke, though.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, we may manage to get this in the video. I'm going to turn this around so that you can see what it says. I don't know how close that is.
Here, let me see. I'll show them. Oh, nope. That didn't like that.
Okay. Try it again. So that's just a little word cloud I did of some of the things that occur to me.
For what being woke is?
Being understanding, commitment, environmental awareness, imagination, art, fairness, gracious. This is not an exhaustive list. Modesty, generosity, integrity, grace, moral courage, kindness, empathy, sincerity, respect, creativity, wisdom, compassion, justice, truth, humility, responsibility, harmony, friendship, tolerance for ambiguity, kindness to waitresses and waiters. And last but not least, that great sociologist C. Wright Mills, who coined the phrase the sociological imagination. So I'm going to ask you, Sarah, to look at that.
Mhm.
Which one of those is nearest and dearest to your heart? And it's not an exhaustive list, so if you have something else to add, but these are the kinds of things I think of when I think of the word woke. And I think you're exactly right.
I
when you
think
say to be
moral
conscious.
courage speaks to me
Okay.
that people need to have moral courage. And, you know, the history of the word woke and being used from the word wake to woke is the blacks community in the 20s and 30s actually used to tell their children to stay woke, that there have been a whole generation of people in that community that have grown up being told stay woke. And in that vernacular, it's my understanding that what they're saying is be aware of what's going on around you. Don't be safe. Don't get in trouble. You know, try and stay out of the line of sight of some of these crazy people who
Right.
are cruel. And so, you know, I didn't grow up in that. I'm a very privileged person, and I did not grow up with that environment. But my parents would have. I mean, they were very, very. They grew up in New York City. They grew up around a lot of different people, and they were very aware of their privilege and raised us to have humility, which I think is on there. Yes, it is,
Right.
and to be responsible and compassionate towards anyone. You know, other people. You just don't know. And speaking of a waitress, you don't know what kind of a day that woman is having.
Right.
You literally don't know, you know, if she's, you know, feeding her kids ketchup and bread for dinner because she's so broke.
When my daughter Jennifer was old enough to understand it, we were at some. It was like an Allsup's, but it wasn't Allsup's. But she'd made a huge mess on the table with with a bun or something, and she looked at me and she said, I said, you need to clean that up a little bit. And she said, no, the waitress will clear it up. And I came down on her like a ton of bricks. And I told her that I lived in Vermont many years where you had the coneheads, the skiers come up from Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And their attitude towards waiters and waitresses in this little village, kind of a tourist trap, was horrible. And I told Jennifer, I says, you can tell everything you need to know about a person by the way they treat a waiter or a waitress.
And the same, you know,
And
if you're in a
that's
hotel,
again-
you treat the chambermaid that way, or you treat, you know, the people
Everybody
there.
deserves that. And that again is Immanuel Kant's kind of imperative about respect for persons in a nutshell. That's all it means.
So I would say, you know, if you wanted to continue on with what does being woke mean now, I guess it really became much more prevalent in the zeitgeist of our communities back during the Me Too movement, and it was "Stay Woke" was a hashtag, and it was being aware of like Harvey Weinstein or whatever
Right,
his
sure.
name, and being aware of other people's, you know, situations in life where they may be, you know, maybe being treated horribly. And so from then to now, what's happened is and I guess in my mind, when I cheekily named this woke donkeys, I was sitting at a restaurant at Starbucks, and there were three of us from the Democratic Party, and of course the donkeys is because of that. But you know, the image of a donkey is pretty controversial as well.
Sure.
Although I'm not going to change that on my own, because it's been there since, you know, Andrew Jackson or Johnson or whichever horribly racist president it was that,
Right.
you know, they called a jackass.
Right.
And that's why the donkey became that.
Right.
And then we have now the grand old party, the GOP, is the shape of an elephant. And I prefer to call them the jellyfish party, because they're spineless, mindless,
I
and they
love
don't have a
elephants.
brain. Yeah.
But you use the word racism or racist.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that this what would you call it, either a meme or a trope, is actually in many ways, when used by the administration, Trump, and so on and so forth. It's a racist dog whistle,
Mm-hmm.
is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, the superior race is the white race, and if you're woke, by definition, you're seditious, you're a loser, you're all those bad things.
See, and I think being woke means that you have compassion for your fellow man
Sure.
and humanity, and that you're not cruel on purpose. You know, everyone can be unintentionally cruel by accident, but your goals in life, you know, regardless of what religion you are, should be related to treating other people like you wanted to be treated. You know, the basic golden rules.
Do you
right?
have any? You don't. I don't see any. Do you have any hats around?
Yes.
Good.
What do you need a hat
I
for?
want you to go get a hat. And I want you to turn it into your Republican hat, your far right Republican hat. We can wait. We'll wait while you. Well, is it easily available?
Yes, it's easily available.
Okay.
Okay.
So
We're
we'll
going to turn it into a.
We'll call this your Republican hat, and it's a very, very far right Republican hat. And Sarah's just going searching for this
Okay.
magic hat.
I think I have hats in here.
Any hat will do.
Those are my
I don't
clothes.
suppose you have a MAGA hat there.
I actually do somewhere.
Wow.
I know, right? I found it on the street.
So it was a freebie.
Oh, here's a hat.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. I found.
Oh, that's a good hat. All right.
Yes,
so you
it
got
was
to put
a
that on.
gift, and somebody nailed it or made it for me. You want me to put my hat on?
Yes, put your hat on.
Oh, gosh.
And you are now
Oh,
you're certainly a member of MAGA. And you're on the bell curve to the very far right of MAGA. So you're really pretty right wing. What does woke mean to you?
oh, God.
It's a tough one.
Stupid. That you're stupid and you don't. I mean, I'm just thinking of what people have said or what I've read online, which is really hateful and horrible stuff. I would imagine that they would say things like, we're ignorant and we're dumb and
Snowflake,
oh yeah, snowflakes. We're
social
snowflakes.
justice warrior.
Yeah. And what's the other one that they use all the time? Left woke leftist or just
Radical left wing
oh
socialist.
yeah, that's it.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand where I mean, you know, they're just labels that they're creating and they don't actually mean anything or that, I mean, they may have significance to them,
Right.
but for those of us on the receiving end of that kind of chatter, can I take my hat off?
Sure.
Oh, thanks. For those of us who get called those things, most of the time I laugh. So occasionally I use inappropriate words and I call them MAGA somethings, you know, but and that was videotaped. But I just think to myself, are you aware of your history? Are you aware of the language? Because, you know, it's like using the word socialist and communism. Those are economic things. Those are not necessary. And so when you call me you want to live in a communist country and you want to live in a socialist country. And I'm like, you already live in a socialist country. You have roads and schools and fire and libraries and you already live there, but yet you're just kind of, you know, like you think that only the left is responsible for those things. And while we are responsible for a huge amount of things that have enhanced people's lives, like, you know, a 40-hour work week, having weekends, getting paid, having Fair Labor Standard Act so that you get sick time off, you get, you know, minimum wage, even though they haven't allowed us to touch minimum wage, and it, you know, in my mind, it should reflect as the, you know, inflation index. So if you get inflation is this much, then so should the minimum wage be.
So we're operating, in other words, with two, if not contradictory, radically opposite sort of meanings we attach to the same word. And what I want to suggest to you, and see if you agree with that, is that one of the things that marks the MAGA movement that marks the right generally is authoritarianism.
Right.
And authoritarianism always has certain kind of characteristics. One of which is a sort of a black and white view of morality. Another one is the intolerance for ambiguity, for nuance. Very often that extends to an intolerance for journalists, who are the enemy of the people, apparently, artists, and so on. And this thirst somehow for not just a strong leader, but a cruel leader who is very efficient at inflicting pain, as long as he doesn't inflict pain on the people that support him. And increasingly, we're finding that he is inflicting pain on his supporters.
Well, I'm very concerned about the concentration camps that they're building and that they're housing people in at for-profit concentration camps. Although they're trying to buy, and if you watch Rachel Maddow at all, you'll see that last night she talked about that there are many, many communities that are saying, we will not tolerate that here. And I'd like to go to talk to our city council and say, we don't want a concentration camp or a refurbished warehouse, which means to me, you could refurbish it to house all these people, but you couldn't make housing and you couldn't turn it into apartments for people, or you couldn't, turn it into something that was useful to the community.
Right.
But you can afford to sell this warehouse or purchase this warehouse. The Department of Homeland Security that have been given this completely bloated and absolutely crazy.
Well, it's a military-sized budget, isn't it?
Right, it is. It's totally. And we don't even need that anymore.
No.
And so all I'm saying is that we have got to stop and consider that. Well, what I was going to point out was there are very many people in it doesn't matter if you're a blue or a red state, people are pissed. And he is underwater by 20 to up almost 40% in his key signature areas, which means immigration and inflation, or the economy. And he's in trouble. And people are not happy with him. And now he's doing all these things in order to cheat at the next election cycle. And so the SAVE Act, which I can just touch on really quickly, is it's not just that women are going to have to, go out of their way to do more work than men are because they don't have a passport or a driver's license that matches.
Yeah, sure.
But and that's, to me is absolutely, it's a poll tax, because if you have to go get a passport, meanwhile, just so people know, he has actually been closing down areas and post office services that offer passports.
Right.
So at the same time that he's saying you have to, I do believe that the Senate is not going to pass the SAVE Act. But what's really problematic on the SAVE Act is the stuff that's going to happen to the local communities that actually run elections. They're not giving them the money to change all these things they wanted to change. But then they will come at the midterm and say, well, you didn't follow the rules if the SAVE Act were to pass.